So we are going to talk about parents' adjustment. So we're living at a time where everything is uncertain, right? We've never gone through anything like this before. We know that uncertainty is strongly related to higher levels of depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress. And so we're trying to balance all of this, right? So some of us are working from home and caring for children. Some of us are working on the front lines and then worry about coming home to your families and potentially bringing the virus home. Some people are homeschooling multiple grade levels at the same time. And all of this and this uncertainty can also trigger histories of trauma. So those parents that have those histories are at even more increased risk to be struggling with this. And I will tell you that I am in it with you, and I will consider this to be successful if we can get through it without either a child, spouse, or dog opening the door to the office. So here we go. So what does life look like, right? On social media, it looks perfect. Oh yes, everyone's doing their work and everyone's smiling, but then we know what real life is like. It's this, right? It's chaos. And we've been home, 4, 5, 6 weeks, depending on when y'all started quarantining. And it's just a lot. People have gotten kind of to the end of their ropes and probably let a lot of things go now that they wouldn't have a few weeks ago. And we're going to talk about what that's okay. So what we know about kids who do well, whether it's a medical diagnosis or difficulty in school or just adjusting to divorce, all of those things. So there's a lot of research that tells us that the kids who are best adjusted at the end of something come from parents who are well adjusted. So one of the things that we really need to talk about before we can talk about child's adjustment, is what can you do as a parent so that your parenting is more effective, right? So one thing I like to say is that anxiety is contagious. So if you are not an anxious person and you're in the room with somebody with a lot of anxiety, you will feel yourself starting to become anxious. Your heart might race a little bit, you might have sweaty palms, you might just feel uncomfortable. And so we have to think about that in our homes with our kids, right? So if we're anxious about something, they're going to see it. They might not even interpret it correctly, right? And then they're going to be more anxious. So we also need to show our kids the importance of modeling good coping strategies. And sometimes that coping strategy is, oh my goodness, mom needs a timeout. I am going to go out on the patio and do some breathing for a few minutes, and then I'll be back in, right? Acknowledging that you are struggling with some of this too, and that you have to work to get rid of the anxiety. It's not just a kid thing. This one's really hard. Staying calm even if you don't feel it. This is like holding it together in front of your child and then realizing as soon as you leave the room, you can cry or break down or do whatever you need to do. But in front of that child, have to look like you've got it together. Also, acknowledge your limits. We're going to talk in a minute about that. We cannot do everything at 100%. Okay, you can't be a mother 100% of the time or a father 100% of the time. And I will apologize that I keep going back to moms, but this is for dads, grandparents, caregivers, nannies, whoever is in the house with the kids. And be able to give 100% of your effort to homeschooling and 100% of your effort to work. It just doesn't work. We all have our limits, and once we acknowledge that, that reduces stress too. And then finally, asking for help, whether this is help from friends or family, or if you're really struggling, I have phone numbers at the end that we can talk about that have crisis lines and other ways to get help. So what are some things that you can do as a parent? So the first one is wake up and get dressed every day. And I'm sure we've all seen all the jokes about night pajamas versus day pajamas. And this doesn't mean that you have to be uncomfortable. You can certainly put on comfortable clothes, but it's the act of actually waking up and getting dressed. And so this is actually one of the behaviors that when people are depressed, this is kind of the number one thing we tell them to do, right? Is get up and get started. The second thing, don't say anything to yourself that you wouldn't say to a friend. So don't get down on yourself for feeling as anxious as you are, because would you look at your neighbor and say, why in the world are you acting like this? You are being so ridiculous. So don't say that to yourself. Don't treat yourself worse than you would treat other people. Make time for yourself. I know this is one of those that we always hear, and I know it's not easy, especially now that we have all this increase pressure and responsibility, but we have to figure out how can we make time for ourselves. And this doesn't have to be a lot of time. It just has to be time that you're able to use efficiently. So if you're doing some mindfulness training or some yoga or just some breathing or reading either reading a book or reading some strategies that could help you cope, whatever that is, have to try to figure out how to fit that in. The next one, and that's the picture that you're seeing, is set up virtual babysitters. Obviously, this doesn't work for all age groups, but if you have kids who are old enough to be able to sit in front of a tablet or a phone and maybe talk to grandparents, maybe talk to friends and aunts and uncles, and I've heard of people having grandparents read bedtime stories to the kids. And this is actually something that would be super helpful for you if you have an important meeting. So for example, I'm here right now talking to y'all. This would be a great time to make sure my kids are being watched by somebody else, right? But that they're busy and I know that they're safe and I can do what I need to do. So again, talk to grandparents, talk to friends, and figure out, could they help you during specific times of the day? Because that will actually relieve quite a bit of pressure. Prioritize your schedule. So some days work is going to take precedent. Some days parenting is going to take precedent. Sometimes it's school, whatever it is. It can change on a day-to-day basis. And again, if you have that important meeting at 11 o'clock in the morning, that is the first priority for your day, right? And so you want to make sure that you have that covered and a plan for your child before moving on. This one's a hard one. So stress less about screen time. I know all we hear is limit screen time, limit screen time. Look, you might have to get to a point where you just say, you know what, until we go back to living a more typical lifestyle, I just give up on screen time. And it's okay. It's okay to let that go. Be creative about office space. So, if you're able to take a computer outside, maybe you could have your kids outside too, maybe running around, but just changing where you are. Again, being creative. And I want you to know, I was looking for pictures and there were all these beautiful pictures of people sitting on beaches. And I know that's not quite realistic for many of us, or most of us, I should say. But just kind of try to think outside the box a little bit. Connect with friends and family. This is hard, whether it's via FaceTime or Zoom or WebEx or however you're communicating. It's important that you don't lose contact with these people, but it's actually even more beneficial if when you talk to them, you're seeing them. So texting is great, talking on the phone is great, but kind of the best way to stay connected is via some sort of video. And the last thing, and this is in big letters, be realistic. Be realistic. Don't be so hard on yourself. Realize that every day something is going to go wrong, right? But every day, things are going to go right. And then here is that resources page. So a couple of places, so the Teachers Pay Teachers and the ELSA support, those are great places to go for activities. ELSA support is through the UK, and so to be completely honest, I'm not sure if you want to purchase one of their strategies. I'm not quite sure how that works. I haven't tried it, but they do have some free downloads you can use. Help for Parents and Hope for Children. This is a really great website, has a lot of great information. This breathing skills practice for children works for adults too. This was actually, this is one of my colleagues at Cook Children's, and it's, believe me, nothing earth-shattering. it is just breathing skills for kids. And I can tell you, when my 9-year-old was worried, of course, the things that mom says, those don't work, right? And so I said, hey, a friend of mine made this video, why don't you watch it? And my 9-year-old, it's like 6 or 7 minutes, has utilized all of the techniques. There's like a fun one where you smell hot chocolate. So you're breathing in and then you're blowing it to cool it because it's too hot. So you're breathing out. The other one I really like is smell the birthday cake and blow out the candles. Again, that same thing, slow breath in and slow breath out. If you are needing help, these are some phone numbers that you can call. There is this parenting helpline. These are all available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If you're not comfortable talking to somebody, you can use text. So text hello to 741-741 or talk with us to 66746. So those are just a few options of where to go. Again, there are more resources on the Spina Bifida Association's page. And hopefully between all of these places, you're able to find whatever information it is that you're looking for. This will be posted on the Spina Bifida Association's website. And again, more resources, and thanks so much. Take care. Have a great day.